For a while, it felt more like casting practice than fishing. After a fish had broken off the 5 3/4 inch IU finesse fish I'd been catching almost all my fish on that day, I'd spent the better part of an hour making one fruitless cast after another. Didn't seem to have another IU or any other pattern with a dark back to add contrast to the pearly white belly, so I went with my usual favorite, the same lure in ice shad. But it seemed like the fish wanted nothing to do with it. I'd get a little half-hearted bump on it every now and then, but they sure weren't all over it like they had been on that IU-colored bait. But then I just happened to glance down at the bag of pre-rigged lures laying on the front deck, and what's that I think I see? Could it be? Yep, it sure was. Hot damn, let's see how fast I can get this thing tied on and be back in business. I had dug through that bag of pre-rigged baits when I broke off earlier without spotting the IU one, but now that I had one tied on, I could sense my confidence growing. It would be just too perfect to be able to say I hooked up on my first cast. But I did. And then I hooked up on 8 of my next 10 casts after I'd switched colors. That bothers me. You see, I'm not a color freak. I find a few that work and I stick with them. For stripers, I'd guess that 90% of the ones I catch on soft baits hit either ice shad or albino shad. There's usually a few sexy shiner or IU baits in the boat too for when I get adventurous. But if push comes to shove, I know I can go back to ice shad and catch them. Except every now and then there's that rare occurrence when it doesn't work, and this was one of them. Luckily, I found an answer. The answer was IU. I'm writing it off to the contrast between the dark back and the pearly, light-colored bottom. But who knows what goes through a fish's little brain. To me, lure color is so far down the list of variables that we need to think about on the water that I rarely give it much thought. The depth of my lure in the water column, the way I'm working it, how fast it moves, how fast it sinks. Those are all much higher on the list of presentation-related topics that I try to answer in my quest to get bit often and big. And none of those come into play until I feel like I've got a handle on the location part of the puzzle to start with. It doesn't matter what color you throw, how fast or slow you work it, or any other presentation element really, if you're throwing it into fishless water. So lure color isn't something I'm forced to give much thought to all that often. In my experience, running into a situation where it makes all the difference in the world is just not that common. And while my experience on that day may help to move it up a notch or two in the list of things to consider, by itself it's not going to carry a whole lot of weight in the theories and practices that I've honed over 55 plus years of dead serious fishing. I do have to admit though that on this day, I'm awfully glad that I found that other IU bait in the boat. Thanks for watching.